Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and anybody out there on Facebook or YouTube who just trying to kill some time and learn a new subject or learn a new trade or a new skill. This is a short talk, and I wanted to talk about the experience we had when we went to Nashville. I remember growing up on a farm, and we lived out there in the 30s and 40s, and we used to hear the Grand Ole Opry out of Nashville. We used to have a great big old house radio. We had a huge battery. There were three A's, a B, and a C, and it was we had a great big long wire antenna strung up across between the buildings, between trees, so it could receive Nashville. And we used to listen to Ernest Tubb and Kitty Wells and some of those old entertainers out of Nashville, and we thought, it'd be a wonderful thing as we got older. It was kind of on our bucket list. Barb and I talked about that, and a lot of other people talked about it as well. People are into music, they want to go down and hear. You're going to hear the cream of the crop. Nashville has the cream of the crop down, and the best of entertainers. So, it was in 2007. Another couple, Bill Thompson, his wife and Trail, and Barb and I went down, and we talked about going down and going on a country music holiday. So I talked to Billy, and Billy said, here's my credit card, book it. So we booked a 3-week holiday, and our idea was to drive to Spokane, catch a plane, fly down to St. Louis, spend a week at the St. Louis Steel Guitar World Convention. For 75 players from all over the world came to that convention. It was something else, I'll tell you. And then we rented a car, and we drove down to Branson, Missouri. And there are 35 theaters in Branson. There's a lot of world entertainers there. The Charlie Pride had a theater there, and Mel Tillis, and a multitude of players. So you go into town, and you go into a motel, and on the front foyer there's a great big map showing of all the theaters, the 35 theaters. Then you decide which ones you want to go and see. So we spent a week there. We spent a week in St. Louis and watched 75 of the world's best steel guitar players perform, and met a lot of them, and shook hands with them, and talked about equipment, and it was wonderful. And then we went to Branson, and I think we attended about 7 theaters. It was costing us $18 a couple per person, so it was $36 a couple to go and watch all these shows, and we had a great time, wonderful time. And then we used the same rental car, and we drove to Nashville. So we spent a week in St. Louis, a week in Branson, then we drove to Nashville, and we spent a week there. And we went and seen the Grand Ole Opry, the old Grand Ole Opry, and the new one. And we toured around town on buses, and visited some of the country music stores and all the beautiful spots, and some night shows there. We had some really nice clubs we went to, and the one thing we did enjoy, and it was very pronounced. And it's where you walk into a club, and at home when you put a CD on your radio or your television, you hear the music and it's balanced. That means that some recording engineer has gone in there and he's made darn sure that the drummer is a certain sound level, and the bass guitar is a certain sound level, and each one of the instruments that are going to be played on the stage, they're all pre-adjusted so that when they play, that they all play at about the same level. So then, the other thing we noticed is when you walk into a club there, you'd hear the drummer and you'd hear the bass player. They're the ones that set the tempo. You hear the drummer tap, 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 and the bass player boom, 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 and then they would set the tempo. And then the steel guitar player would play, and then the lead guitar player would play, and then the fiddle player would play, and then the keyboard player would play. So as you sat there and watching the stage from side to side, you'd hear the bass guitar, the drummer, and then you'd hear each instrument by itself. And the only time you heard 2 instruments at a time is where the steel guitar and the lead guitar were teaming up. That means they were playing note for note, and they were playing duo. That means that two players playing the same note, but on 2 separate instruments. and it gives you like a twin sound, eh? But the one thing that we did learn was how precise these guys were. And when I talk about preciseness, I'm talking about where everybody takes their turn. There's no competition at all. No competition whatsoever. You have the bass guitar and the drummer setting the tempo, and both of them are about equal tempo and about equal volume. And then as each player comes on to play, they don't have a sound guy there adjusting that. These guys are doing it as a complementary thing to each other. So you have the steel guitar complementing the fiddle player, and they take turns sharing different parts of a song. And everything is just the sound. You walk in the room and you can't believe the balance involved, you know. And what happens when you don't have that, if you're going just to a music jam, everybody plugs in an electronic amplifier, and it becomes a competition to see who can become the loudest. Because in order to be the star, you have to be louder than anybody else. And all you get is a bunch of noise. It's a real crash, crash, bang, 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 and you don't get that balance. So you get to really appreciate what the sound engineer does. The sound engineer, in order to set that up to begin with, he trains the musicians. Okay, you make darn sure you're not too loud now, and this is going to be the part you're going to take. And then when you're going to back off, and then the next guy's going to play, and then he's going to back off, and another person takes over, and they're complementing one another. And it's like a bunch of people working on a job site where you have a guy that's running a shovel, running a ditching machine or something else, and a man running a grader, and then a man running a spreader machine, and everybody takes their turn. It's a complementary sharing of trade. And that was a really exciting time. Excuse me. And one thing we really learned was the excellence involved in doing that. No, the one thing I think that kind of falls along that line is how lucky we are in the world today and in Canada and British Columbia to have people who are trained, who are skilled. Like you've got a skilled carpenter who is very adept at building houses and repairing houses, and then you have a roofing person who does the roofing, and a person that does the windows, and somebody who does the cement work out in front, and the electrician who does all the electrical work in the building, and then the painter who comes along and paints it, and the person who puts the rug in. And really, if you compare that with a band, these people are all doing the same job. They got a assigned thing, and let's pretend that it's the same thing as the band who are creating a song by playing music together. They're coordinating each other. So to start with, you have the person who digs the basement, and then they put the cement foundations in, and it's all coordinated and timed. And it's exactly the same scenario as playing a song. You create the song, same as creating the basement, and then you put the walls in and the stairs and all that, and your goal is to finish the building and have a completed project. It requires a lot of skill and coordination by the person on site who's looking after the show. You have to make sure order the material that you need and make sure it's delivered at the right time. And it's much like creating an orchestra and making a musical selection where you have the bass player, you hire the bass player, and you hire the drummer, and then you hire all the other musicians, and you decide what kind of a sound you want. Is it going to be a bunch of violins, or is it going to be 3 or 4 guitars, or is it going to be some piccolos, or is it going to be a flute, or trombones? What kind of a band do you want? You still have to coordinate the whole thing together. You first off get a dance hall, or get a hall or a theater, and put all those people in there, and have them all come at a certain time, and they all get together and they complete the job. It's a final job. And I think we have to sometimes get back and think how lucky we are in BC and Canada, and also across America, where we have all these skilled people. We have these people who are building houses and building roads and and also creating uh, traffic ways and stuff like that, and big bridges and stuff like that. It's all in a big master plan. And when they all work together, it's like a big orchestra playing a musical selection. And I'd like to touch just for a couple minutes. I was kind of lucky as a single child in a family. I was a single child from the first mom. My mother passed away when I was born, but then my dad got married again after 6 years, and from his second wife, which was my stepmom, his three children, a brother, two sisters. And it's kind of neat being raised like I was as a single child in a family. It was great because I had my grandmother and my uncle and my dad, and then later on, my dad got married. I had my stepmom came into the picture, and I was able to get love from each of those people, and it was a great family. And the one thing that I noticed, that one thing that creeps in some families, and I didn't experience that in our family, but is the fact that everybody has to get recognition at the same rate. Now, I learned this from a very talented instructor at a course we went to, a supervisor training course, and he said, if you're working as a supervisor on a job or a foreman, and you have people working for you, in most cases, those people that are working for you are working under union contract. That means to say that their pay scale, the amount of dollars they get per hour, is pre-cut by a union agreement. Now, if they work on normal time, they get normal pay. Now, if it's overtime, sometimes it's time and a half, and sometimes it's double time. But that information, their pay scale and that is normally all agreed to in a union contract. Now, and sometimes it's not a union contract; it's a private hire where you have a company and you just hire people as you need them. But the actual pay, when you're looking at the supervisor's job, the supervisor has very little to do with the people, because the fact that he cannot increase their salary. He can work them a few extra hours if they're agreeable, but their pay rate is all pre-cut. That means the rate per hour is pre-cut. No, the supervisor has no effect on that one, especially if it's a union contract. And also the sick leave. If they're to get sick leave when they're off sick, that sick leave benefit is built into the union contract. And also any sick leave benefits or holiday benefits like that is all pre-cut in the contract. So the supervisor himself is only directing the people to do the work. Now, the one thing that we were told by a supervisor trainer was the fact that you have to really be very careful and give out recognition for work well done. So if you have people who are really doing a good job, you have to give them a pat on the back. And also we had a program going where we would give, sometimes people had a good safety record would get a free luncheon, but it's a form of recognition. Now in the trade, there's a blue book that specifies how long it takes to do a job. So let's say, for instance, you're changing a clutch on a car or a truck or something like that, and the blue book calls for, let's say, 7 hours to perform the task. So the supervisor would issue the job to the man and say, okay, what you do is change the clutch in the unit, and how long is it going to take you? So the supervisor would look in the blue book first to find out how long it should be, and then he'd say to the mechanic or whoever's doing the job, how long do you think it's going to take you to do the job? And if the guy says, well, about 5-6 hours, then you know that the person has a good idea on how long the time is going to be, and then you have some expectation of when it will be completed. So then when the job goes on, and let's say that the job is going to take 7 hours, so the job comes in at 8 o'clock in the morning and it's finished by about 5 o'clock. Providing there's no extra times. Let's say that somebody breaks off a bolt or you can't get a part, there's an extenuating circumstance, that means to say that time to do the job would take longer. And there's usually a reason behind that. Now, it makes the supervisor's job a lot easier at that point because he knows what the normal time to do the job is going to be. He's also talked to the person, and the person has said, yeah, it's going to take about 5 or 6 hours, and they have some target to shoot for. And then that means to say that the supervisor has a bit of control of the time that the thing is going to be broken down, and he works with the worker to try and meet that goal. And that gives a performance-related arrangement where the supervisor is getting the best performance out of the worker meets the expectation in the blue book, if it's reasonable, there's no extenuating circumstances. And when the job is finished, if the goal was 7 hours and the guy finishes it up in 5 hours, wow, that's really good. There's a pat on the back right there. You have a chance to give the employee some recognition. And recognition is a powerful tool to motivate people. And there's nothing like getting a letter of recognition or a gift or a cup of coffee or a free lunch or something like that for recognition for a job well done. It also allows the supervisor then, if he's got a large crew of men and they're doing similar jobs, to say, well, okay, Bill's doing the job over here and his job is 7 hours and he's finished it in 6 hours, and Sam is doing the job over here and he's finished it in 7 hours, and they're all performing below or above the expected labor time. And if they beat the labor time, that means to say they're making money because they can get more work done. And that's productivity. And recognition for productivity is a powerful thing if you have guys working for you. Whether you have a computer report that you can measure productivity and have meetings with the crews and say, hey guys, look at this. We're going to take a look at our productivity, and our time for doing these tasks, we're even beating what the recommended time is. And that allows you to give recognition, a pat on the back for people doing a good job. And that's a powerful tool. And I think it's important that the supervisor realize that, people like to be recognized for doing a good job. Nothing like good recognition. And then the other part of the equation is the fact that sometimes you get a really high performing individual, and they meet all the times easily because they have a good goal and they lay the wrenches out and they've got good work ethics. But then you get the one where the guy, maybe he's involved in a trade, but he should have been into something else. Maybe he should have been a barber. So you don't get the expectation in time. So those kind of people are a challenge for the supervisor, because if you've got a guy that's, let's say the job assignment time is 8 hours, and all of a sudden it's taken him 23 hours. Now, if there were no extenuating circumstances, that means to say that then if the supervisor is going to allow the guy to take 2 and 3 times as long as what the normal time allowed is, the productivity across the whole crew goes down. People won't pull their load. So other people will see that one guy is taking 3 times longer to do the job than the other ones do, and it affects the morale on the crew. So it's really important that we make sure that those time factors are followed, and then give recognition for high-performing individuals, and trying to coach people who, and if there's any shortcuts that we can find, a quicker way to do the job, buy a better tool or use a better faster jack or some method of doing a job quicker, that we adopt that quickly so we can keep the productivity up. Now, if we don't have a recognition, now getting back to the non-performer, if you get a person who's in the wrong trade and you can't boost them up, that means to say that you talk to the person and say, look, you've done this job several times and it's taken us 3 times as long. What's the reason for it? Now, if the person is sick or got a problem, that's a different story. But if the person just is in the wrong trade, he may have to go and switch this to a different trade. That happens the odd time. But that responsibility lies firmly on the supervisor. And sometimes unions take I've seen unions take a bad hit saying that guys that work in the union are a bunch of lazy guys. Well, that's not true. It doesn't matter whether you have a blue shirt on or a green shirt or a red hat or a white hat. It doesn't matter. The time to do the job is usually reasonable, and it's usually assigned scientifically, and that gives a guiding factor for the time to do work. Sometimes if people can't do the work, you have to replace them, put them into a different job. Sometimes they have got some handicaps. Maybe they're born crippled, or they've got some problems with their posture, and they can't do the job. Now I want to just spend a couple minutes talking about the recognition for people doing a good job, and also there's a situation where sometimes people are envious of other people. Now you find people on a job site where one person thinks that somebody else is being favored. Now, by having the time factor involved, everybody works to the same rule. So we have a bit of a guidance saying, okay, this is the time factor to do the job. This particular job is 4 hours or 5 hours or whatever it is, but there's a factor involved there. So it's the responsibility of the supervisor to keep those guys in line with that. And if you do that, everybody's treated with the same rule. So everybody works to the same time factor, and nobody gets any special treatment. Because if you allow one person to take 3 times as long as another one, then the other people see that, and you get a resentment going on where you're favoring one guy. You're actually favoring the person because you're giving him too much time to do the work. And it's the supervisor's job to correct that. And I think in all fairness, we should take our hats off to union workers, because union workers are usually pretty damn interested in doing a good job, and but the supervisor still has to be in there doing a monitoring job and making sure that he does it. And it doesn't matter, again, whether it's a government employee or whether it's a contractor employee. Anybody who's doing a good job should get recognition for doing a good job. And there's nothing like a little motivation, a pat on the back, a letter of recognition, or a gift, or a cup of coffee, maybe a pizza that we can all share, and we can sit around and talk about it and share the good luck, and also the good news from management. If you get a program going, we used to have a called a recognition program, where if somebody came up with a really good idea, they would get recognition for it. We had one guy get a check for $5,500 because he came up with a suggestion in the Suggestion Awards program, where they implemented a new process for doing things, and he was given special recognition for that. Now the Japanese have been doing that for years. It's called equality circles, where they sit around and talk about the job, and they're asked, how are things going in your department? How is your department here? And then if somebody comes up with a suggestion where they can implement a new program and do the job more quickly and save money, a portion of that money is given back to the employees or the employee, whichever case. Sometimes it's more than one person. But the Employee Suggestion Award program is a tremendous program to motivate people, because you get people all looking around for better ways to do things. And you always got people looking, God, if we bought a new floor jack, or we bought that, or we bought this, or bought that, we could do the work faster, get our work done, achieve the goals quicker, and save a lot of money. So we share the saving. And it encourages people to look around and find better ways to do things. So anyway, we wanted to thank you and for listening, and have yourself a great afternoon. And thank golly, we're all retired now, so we can look back and say thank you and have a good day, and talk to you later.